Welcome back to Port Elizabeth, the beautiful city. This is part 14. I'm working from a series of PowerPoint presentations that I compiled using photographs I took from 2014 over about the next 5 years. This is the Newington Street row built around about the turn of the 20th century, so late 1890s, early 1900s. And it's an object example of what should have been done to retain the character of the Donkin Row, built a decade or two earlier, Victorian row, and which has now kind of lost a lot of its character in a so-called restoration. But the Newington Row, so I've written, this is, I seem to have, as I've gone ahead, I've made the pictures bigger and put less info on. So I did just say that late Victorian double-storey homes built at the turn of the century, they're at the top of Albany Road. So the date of this walk was the 5th of September 2014. And then we have these views of the road. So this is Albany Road in the foreground that heads down towards the sea, basically. An interesting row, really. I mean, so this is the sort of attention to detail that should have been retained on the Donkin Row. You know, that it's that sort of wood timber work that characterizes these buildings. I have never used a posh camera on these walks because in South Africa, you just don't take anything too valuable out on the street with you. You're going to get mugged. Good chance. I mean, even the camera I was using, which is a point and shoot sort of thing, so slightly better than a cell phone, but anyway, I think I've managed to capture this thing quite well. So then we headed down Newington Road, and it's the start of my first exploration, really, of Richmond Hill, which was the second hill really to be developed in Port Elizabeth. Well, not really, I suppose. South End was also simultaneously being developed on the other side of the river. So first you had the hill, which was just basically the hill above the early town. Then Richmond Hill, and this is Richmond Hill. So look at this fantastic townhouse. It's called a Victorian townhouse, really, from the 1880s, and its name is Windy Ridge. And of course, now it's been turned into offices for a law firm, I think. But, you know, that's the price of turning over a beautiful building. If you're going to have it retained and restored in a decent manner, then you're just fortunate if it lands up in the hands of a firm or a company that appreciates what they've got and looks after it. And I think these people have. So look at that balcony. It's stunning. You know, all that detail. This would look at home in any part of the UK, you know. So unfortunately in South Africa, it's only pockets of excellence that have been looked after. So I always love it when I find a building that's beautifully maintained, you know, an old building like that. So the Dutch Cape Dutch gable is a feature of our architecture, which you see on the left there. And then we've got the Erica Girls' School, which was opened in 1903 by Thomas Muir, then Superintendent General of Education. So it's only when you do a thing like this that surnames, for instance, start to evoke further investigation. Now, Thomas Muir, I am convinced would then be the person after whom Muir College was named. I think, where is Muir? Is it? It's in one of these Eastern Cape towns, like Cradock or somewhere. Might even be. No, I don't think it's in Newton, but I could be wrong. So anyway, this beautiful piece of architecture by W. White Cooper and built by H.J. Beckett was the Erica Girls' School campus initially. And then as you look across a little park, on the same park here, so if you looked 90 degrees or about 150 degrees to your right, you'd see that view of that little church, which we'll see shortly. But here's a nicely maintained park, beautiful trees, wind-blown trees, and that church. So unfortunately, the light was behind this church when I was there, but I think it's okay. So it was named after a species of fynbos, Erica carinhoides or something. And it sits quite exposed on the hill overlooking the bay. So I did go out in the morning, and unfortunately the sun was still pretty much behind it most of the time. But I went there on several occasions in the 1980s and early 90s when I think even right through to about 2010 as a art reviewer of art exhibitions, because this used to be I forget what sort of technical college type thing, and they had regular exhibitions which I attended. It's now, I think, just a government department, education department building or something. Such lovely detail again, though. Yeah. And now we're heading back over that park. Notice I've pulled out my pictures even wider as I've gone along. So this is, what street is this? I think I did make a note earlier. Anyway, it's not that important. I think I got lazy with my caption writing. So this is next door. Oh, yeah, here we are in St. Philip's Street. So that church is St. Philip's Church. And look at this building next to St. Philip's Hall. So on the right in this picture is the hall, which we'll have a look at just now. And then there's this wonderful building, well maintained again. And this is St. Philip's Hall. Stone laid by James Sewell in 1912. That's the same James Sewell who laid the foundation stone of the Harbour Board building. I think he was a mayor, not sure though. So a very interesting entrance there. And then even across from it is this settler cottage of attached housing. And here on the corner of that was Callingdon Road that we went down, and St. Philip's Street. And the foundation stone was laid in 1883. The church dedicated in 84. St. Philip's, I'm not sure which denomination this was. And so now, by walking down Callingdon Street, we get a nice view of this side of the Erica School. I mean, isn't that a fantastic combination of gables and all sorts of decoration that makes this a stunning building? And the bright white of the church, quite hard to tone it down, I suppose, in our bright sunny weather. So here we're looking down Callington Street, and it's actually, these are lovely little buildings in their own right, back up towards that church. And okay, so just behind the viewer here is the end part of St. Philip Street. I think we saw it. It runs, just down sort of at the front of that, up to the school, Erica. So this is the bottom part of it. Where was it? Yeah, running down there. And that's looking back up again. Now we're heading up St. Philip's. We've just stopped to take a quick look at that headstones and a bit of info about St. Philip's. I hadn't realized I'd done this much. Started as a mission church in 1872, families mostly Dutch-speaking who had moved to Port Elizabeth from what is now the Western Cape. Church started in a wool store in Strand Street before moving to the Mechanics Institute in Newington Street, when a lack of space took them to the then St. Paul's Boys' Schoolroom. Here they became the responsibility of the rector of St. Paul's. Now, where was St. Paul's? With the ministry starting to prosper under Richard Mollett, a teacher who later became St. Philip's first rector. He was buried there in 1909. So anyway, so it was it's a very bright church. Callington Street, the sea in the distance, and the corner of Irvine Street in Callington. It's quite easy to get lost in Richmond Hill if you don't know it. So we're just going to follow. Look how English that looks with those chimneys. I mean, they just need the ceramic pots on the top, and then it really looks English. And at this point, you can't complain about, look, here's some unfortunate addition, a garage. Hopefully they plaster that. But it's when you do things like that you can destroy a streetscape. Because look at that lovely wrought tin roof, let's call it. But with a balcony, with a curved sort of cover over the balcony. Continuing down Callington and down Mackay Street with the 2010 stadium in the distance. And just see it at the end of the so it was a good day this in terms of the light and the sort of winter, because there's no foliage really on the trees. A lot of these are oak or similar. They lose their leaves in winter, so it's actually a good time to photograph. Corner of Mackay or Mackie or whatever in Callington. Big drawback of this area is nowhere to park your car. So most of these houses were built before cars were invented. So garages were never really a thing. And we get approaching Sherlock Street. And look at those houses here in Sherlock. Up St. Stephen's Street. And Edward Street intersection. At this point I was confused, not sure which street I was even in. Lansdowne Place. So this is an interesting place. It's now called the Kumbalani High School and was once the provincial hospital. The first was a little house in Rodney Street in Main Street, but this was the first major hospital to be built, purpose-built hospital in PE. So I think it's really that section there, you can see that has an old look about it. Oh yeah, we have a picture from 1905. Yeah, so that I should have gone out to the front. Is that? You can see this pediment, I think they call it, is probably this here, is that. Oh, this is a highlight of Lansdowne Place, is this building here. Lodge Caledonia, we're talking Freemasons here. This is a Masonic lodge built in 1899. Art Nouveau, classic building here. Look at all the decoration. And, you know, people get a bit paranoid about this thing in the eye, whatever. I've no idea what the story is behind all that, but certainly at some point people got together as business people, and who knows, maybe they're conspiring currently to take over the world, but you know, they left a nice building there for us. That's the old Clarendon Hotel there. Great row of old houses. But, security is an issue, so you get these ugly things covering windows and balconies. And that's the story of South Africa, I'm afraid. Up in Edward Street is that nice, really nice building there. I'm just going to stop, I think, when we get to the Pioneer Memorial Synagogue. It's now a museum. So this one was built by the Jewish community between 1912 and 1954. Oh, it was used by them. So it must have opened in 1912. Yeah, so we'll halt here and pick it up again shortly. Cheers.